Are you a caterpillar, a cocoon, or a butterfly? You ask, what did she say? I ask you, are you a caterpillar, a cocoon, or a butterfly? Today we're going to be talking about perimenopause, from confused to confident. So what does a butterfly, a cocoon, a caterpillar, a cocoon, and a butterfly have to do with perimenopause? I'm using that today as an analogy. We are born, we live our lives, that we are caterpillars. And then there is a change, or the beginning of change, and that is the cocoon. So today we're going to talk about perimenopause in that cocoon. And you've heard all the stories. You've heard how terrible it is. But I want to take you today from confused to confident, because after you go through the cocoon phase and you break free, you become a butterfly. So remember, embrace the seasons and cycles of life. There is magic in change. So first off, I'd like to read you something. And it is from a book called Perimenopause, What Your Mother and Girlfriends Did Not Tell You. Why I don't recognize my body anymore. You spent the previous 30 to 40 years being familiar with your body, knowing when your skin will break out, your breasts become sore, if you'll have cravings, mood swings, have or feel the onset of cramps, without having to glance at a calendar. Many women know within the day or the hour when their period will arrive. You know yourself and are comfortable in your own skin. Subtly at first, you start to notice changes, like someone tapping you on the shoulder and quickly moving to the opposite side, so that when you turn around, they're not there, yet you know you've been tapped. A large misconception is the misuse of the word menopause. We chuckle when we see the wrist action of the mothers of the church just fanning away when they whip out their fans, because it doesn't feel warm to us. And someone whispers, it's menopause. It may not be. Menopause is when someone has not had a menstrual cycle for 12 consecutive months. Perimenopause, and what we're going to talk about today, is that transitional period prior to menopause. It's the time in which what was once familiar may become foreign to you and those surrounding you. When your ovaries began producing estrogen, puberty, and your menstrual cycle began, as we age, that estrogen in our bodies began to deplete. It is the lessening of estrogen that causes the onset of perimenopause. So, we're going to stop there, because we're going to talk about embracing the next chapter. So if you came into this talk and you said, I'm confused, I hear things, but I'm not sure. I Google things, and they're not the same. I talk to my doctor, and my doctor says, you're too young. Well, the purpose today is to get you from confused to confident, so that you know, and so that you can fight for yourself, for you can stand up to knowing what is going on in your body, and you can tell your physicians, I have questions, I have concerns, because this is what I'm seeing. You're not going crazy. So also, if you are beyond this phase or you have not yet reached it, this is so that you will know, because there may be somebody that you care about who is suffering or changing because of hormonal shifts. And you want to understand what they may be going through or how to help them. So, at the beginning, you're going to be like a dry, starved seeker of information. So imagine a dried weed along the side of the road. And then by the end, you will be a fully nourished rose, a nurtured recipient of perimenopausal information that we typically don't talk about. I said, embrace the seasons and cycles of life. There is magic in change. So, what if you could recognize the symptoms and the triggers? I'm here to tell you it is possible. When it comes to managing symptoms, most women don't. So, why do so few of us try to ignore them? Between 73% and 85% of women are experiencing symptoms, but they are fearful of what they may be. So rather than talk to their physicians about it, they run to the computer. We run to our phones. We Google. And most of us always find the worst case scenario. You may have bumped your elbow, but when you look it up because your elbow is hurting, you find all of the terrible things that it could be, but you just didn't remember that you bumped it. So I want to help you to start to know what it is you're seeing, what it is that you're feeling. A myth. As women, we learn it's embarrassing to talk about what's going on in our bodies, unless you're pregnant. How many of you, with a show of hands, have had children? And how many of you have shared with others about what your cravings were, how long you were in labor, on and on and on? But if I ask you, raise your hands, how many of you have had symptoms of some kind or another that is new to you, and you said not a word? Quite a few of you. The other piece, what does the media tell us? The media tells us that as we age, we should become hidden. We're not interesting, we're not newsworthy, nor desirable. That is far, far, far from the truth. Think about the women that you know who are of the age of perimenopause. And the average age of perimenopause is 34 to 54. There are some women, and again, that's an average, but there are some women who begin seeing symptoms much, much, much younger and much later. So we'll stick with that average. Think about those women. Are they not interesting? Are they not newsworthy? And someone finds them desirable. So don't listen to what the media tells us. Don't listen, because my motto is, it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter where you are on this journey. You're still hot. So myth. 15% of the women presented in media are over 50. Of those portrayed, perimenopause and menopause is depicted as a terrible time of life. We hear about the hot flashes. We hear about the mood swings. We hear about the sleep or the other unusual symptoms. We hear about people who have metal taste or whose joints ache. We hear about the bad things. But I want to present to you 40% of women are over 50. And so throughout a typical day, you interact or you see women who are currently going through perimenopause. And many, many, many women have minimal symptoms. Look to your right, look to your left. Somebody near you is currently going through perimenopause. And if you are in that age group, many of your friends and loved ones are going through perimenopause. Here's the story. The first hot flash. Close your eyes for a moment and think about your busiest shopping center, your busiest shopping area. It's usually in the middle of town. It has thoroughfares and boulevards and there are cars all around, buildings. It's not typically on the outskirts. So one day, my husband and I had left the shopping area and we were on that major thoroughfare in the middle of our town. And all of a sudden, I heard a train. And I asked him, "Do you hear that train?" He said, "No." And I started getting warm. I took off my coat. And the train kept getting louder. I said, "You sure you don't hear that train?" He said, "No." Now I know up here, the train tracks are not near our mall. But I could hear a train. And I was getting warm. So then I took off my sweater. And he kind of looked at me. And I'm like, "Are you really serious? You don't hear that train?" He said, "No, I don't." I took off my shirt. So now I am in the car on the busy boulevard. It was not nighttime, so other cars were coming past. People could see into the car and see that I was taking off my clothes. I got down to my bra. And if it had continued to get hotter, I probably would have taken that off too. But my husband was horrified. He's looking at me like, what is wrong with my wife? I was hearing a train, literally. But as the heat subsided, the sound of the train dissipated. I had had my first hot flash and I didn't know. And so you may have a hot flash. You may not, you may be sitting in a meeting and you may see someone turning red as they're presenting and you're wondering what's wrong with them. They may be having a hot flash. So I want to just tell you, not everybody hears trains. Not everybody has hot flashes. But if you don't know, then you don't know. And again, that's what we're going to be covering today, is knowing what your triggers are, knowing what some of the symptoms are, knowing that perimenopause is just a bridge. It is not the end. It may be the end of a cycle, the end of childbearing years, but there are so many wonderful things on the other side of that bridge. So I ask you, what do you imagine would be the outcome if women talked about perimenopause the same way they talked about pregnancy? Second question, what's the best possible outcome if we did? I'm going to answer the second question first. If we did, and when we do, we lessen the fear that is out there about perimenopause. We lessen the shame. There should be zero shame about our bodies going through what they do naturally. Many of you have sons, and for those of you who do not, you may have friends who have sons or you have nephews. And during puberty, when their voices change, the hormones change. And they may be speaking regularly, and then in the middle of the sentence, their voice may crack, their voice may croak. Everybody laughs because we understand what it is, and it is a natural part of life. I want us to get to the same place in regard to perimenopause. We know if we have been given the gift of life and the gift of years, and you continue to age, your hormones came, you had a cycle. Your hormones will deplete, and your cycle will cease. It's just a season of life. So we have the problem. It takes time to research symptoms, and you could still be wrong. So when you Google will now tell you different things, but each of us is different. How many of you had friends when you were when your cycle started and we were in school? Their cycle came, their cycle went. They didn't have mood swings, they didn't have cravings, they didn't have cramps. On the complete opposite end, you may have had friends who were out of school for several days because they were in such pain. That's like the bell curve. You've got, we'll do my math. I believe it's 20, 20, and then the 80% of the bell curve. The majority of us are going to be somewhere in the middle of that bell curve. We may not be the ones who sail through without any symptoms, but on the flip side, we may not be the ones who are on that other end who it is a difficult time. The majority of us fall in the middle. Some have one symptom, some have a few symptoms. Some symptoms may be better than others, some they may struggle with more. So it takes time to research symptoms, but if we don't share and tell our doctors, there's no knowledge. One of you who's listening to me may have heard a train, and some of you have had hot flashes and never hear a thing. But we have to know the different things that can and could occur. So 2, embarrassed. This change is not taboo. If we can tell our girls when they're going to go into puberty, we can tell other women that estrogen will decrease. Those of you who are on the other side, who are already in menopause, your cycle has been ceased for more than 12 consecutive months. I challenge you. Have you shared with your nieces, with your daughters, with your younger women friends what's to come? Or are you keeping that to yourself and letting them just find out? That's not right. We need to talk to one another. The third part of the problem, money. People are fearful. Medical care is expensive. The fear of a serious condition may keep many from seeking medical advice. And then society is the fourth problem. Women and females are considered less important once they are out of childbearing years. But I challenge you, think about your grandmothers. Think about those older, wiser women. They're not less important. We sit at their feet. We sit and listen to the wisdom that they share, to the wisdom that they can impart to us. So I, as one of those older women, am imparting to you so that you know that you don't have to be fearful, that you don't have to be confused, and that as you go through this, you can become confident. So the ideal solution of all of this, normalization. Normalization that hormones increase, hormones decrease. And understanding that, knowing that nothing is wrong with you, your body is just changing. When things change inside of you, things change around you. And what options do you have? Someone you know is going through perimenopause. 1 million to 2 million women per year become perimenopausal. It's not a secret. So let me just tell you a little bit about me. I'm Daria Rosen, and 4 months after my wedding, I became ill. Physicians immediately recommended a hysterectomy. And natural options succeeded in me lessening the symptoms that I had for several years. Some of my symptoms were due to endometriosis. However, the endometriosis won, and I ultimately had to undergo a hysterectomy. A life-saving hysterectomy with 11 surgical procedures. So I am one of the ones where my menopause was surgical. My menopause began immediately. There are those of you within the sound of my voice, you understand that. The rest of you, it will be less of a jolt. It will be a gradual time. And that period can last from anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So back a little bit about me. I have 65 years of life experience. I am married with no children. I'm a TEDx speaker. I live in Northern California. And I've always loved finding solutions. That's one of the things. I spent 30 plus years in corporate America, 17 of them in medical IT. And as a consultant, I've learned to take complex things and make them simple. So that's what I'm trying to do in regard to perimenopause. It can be complex, but it really is simple. So here are a few fun facts. I was at Ebony Magazine Most Eligible Bachelorette, and I do not like chocolate. When I say I do not like chocolate, I detest chocolate. So now you have a little bit of sense about who is this woman who is talking to me about perimenopause. So when I experienced my illness, I knew I had to help other women. And I started questioning, did anybody tell you what could happen to your body? And most of them said, oh yeah, when I was a child, people told me I was going to have a cycle. But I asked, but did anybody tell you what was going to happen when the cycle ceased. And they said, no, no one had shared with them about what to expect. So, in telling people, I have a dear friend named Keisha. I told you my first hot flash story. I didn't know what to expect. Keisha, on the other hand, actually heard me speak and actually read my book. And so when she had her first hot flash, she was in a meeting surrounded by a whole group of other women. And she asked, is it getting hot in here? Nobody was getting warm. But instead of being fearful, she said, I know what this is. Daria told me what to expect. So she was not fearful, and she understood what was happening. She went from confused to confident. My question to her was, my first question to her was, were the women in the room your age or older? She said, most of them are older. I said, when you ask them, do you feel the heat or is it getting warm? I said, did anyone say you might be having a hot flash? She said, nobody said a word. This is the reason why. This is why I say we have to share with one another. Because if she hadn't heard me speak, if she hadn't read my book, she even said, I was getting ready to Google what is going on. What major thing is going on in my body? But she understood what was happening. So, knowing what could happen alleviates fear. Sharing helps others, and the changes may not be serious. Now, how long does perimenopause last? I did tell you earlier, the average is 7 to 10 years. And that average can be longer and is longer for many women of color. Do I have to take estrogen replacement therapy? No, each of you are different. That's why it is important to speak with your physicians to see what is going on with you. Your body is different from mine. Your body is different from the woman next to you. What works for one of you may or may not work for another. So we've kind of talked about hot flashes. Let's talk about sleep. How many of you have a vehicle? Raise your hands. And if you don't have a vehicle, you know someone who has a car. That's pretty much all of us. And when that car needs service, we know it's not sounding right, it's not riding right, something is wrong. I'm going to take it to the dealership. I'm going to take it to the mechanic. Off you go. You provide the list of things that are going on with your vehicle, and you leave it. The next day, the mechanic calls you back and says, hey, Daria, your car's ready. Whatever your name is, your car is ready. And you happily run down, you go to pick it up, and they say to you, remember those things that you said were wrong? Well, for item number 1, we only fixed 10% of that. For item number 2, we fixed 75% of that. Item 3, we fixed 100%. But item 4, we're not going to bother with that. This is how much it cost. And you happily reach into your pocket, reach into your wallet, and you hand them the credit card. How many of you would hand them the credit card? Nobody. They did not fix the problems. I use that analogy to tell you that sleep is repairing. It is the repair of our bodies. So when we don't sleep, when we don't get our rest, and I will raise my hand and tell you that I am guilty many times of not getting the sleep that I need. I am not, and you are not allowing your body to repair. You, in effect, the very next day when you get up, some things are at 10%, some things are at 75%, some things are at 100, and some didn't get to repair at all. That's what we're doing when we don't sleep. Think of sleep as your foundation. You're living in a building, and that foundation has cracks. That foundation is rocky. That foundation can't hold up against the stress of the four walls and the roof. Think of sleep as your body's foundation. And I found a quote by William Penn, so let me read this to you. True silence is the rest of the mind, and is to the spirit what sleep is to the body, nourishment and refreshment. So when we go off on retreats, when we go off on walks and it's quiet, that is nourishing our minds. We need to do the same thing in regard to sleep. Some objections that people may have are, but I don't want to drastically change my life with perimenopause. For many of you, and I would dare say most of you, perimenopause is not going to drastically change your life. For some of you, it may. But I inquire of you, I encourage you, tell the loved ones that you live with of what is going on. Because if all of a sudden you're cranking up the air conditioner and everybody else is running for their coats and their blankets, or if at one moment you're smiling and you're happy, and the next minute you're crying, and then the minute after that you're yelling your heads off at everybody, people are going to say, oh, she's gone crazy. No, you haven't gone crazy, and it is not in your mind. It's your hormones. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't leave others in the dark. One of the things that I like to talk about is when you know your body, you will learn what triggers. So what I want you to do is to begin to capture. Most of you have smartphones. Capture. You don't even have to write it. You can do a voice memo and say, I had a hot flash at whatever time it is. Then I want you to think about, what did I eat within the last few hours? What did I do? It may be something that you ate. Hot sauce was one of my triggers. But I learned that, and I made the decision, do I eat hot sauce or do I not? Because it is going to make me have a hot flash. I chose the latter. I'm going to have my hot sauce, and I'll deal with the consequences. For some of you, once you know what your triggers are, for some of you, it may be sugar. For some, it may be alcohol. So when you go out and you see a woman sitting there at a bar in the club and she's flushed and you think, oh, she's had a bit much. She's drunk. She's tipsy. I'm here to tell you, she may not be at all, that alcohol may be a trigger for her. The same way with sleep. Start to look. How many hours did I get? What did I do before? Because sleep, and again, sometimes sugar, can cause hot flashes or night sweats. And again, you know what? I'm not going to get medical because I am not a medical doctor. But your cortisol levels, think fight or flight, that raises and declines throughout the day and night. But you have to begin to listen to your body. However old you are right now, you've lived in your body that many years, and nobody, whether it be a doctor, a spouse, a child, nobody knows your body better than you. So when you start to feel different things, don't necessarily think something's wrong. The reason that I suggest to you to go and tell your physician and have a conversation is because if you are fearful, what if on the off chance that there is something? You don't want to gamble. The majority is going to be hormones and perimenopause. When you have that confidence, and if you have a physician that does not listen to you, that poo-poos you and says, you're not old enough, or it's in your head, or something else, I want you to advocate for yourself. I want you to come prepared. Not just that, I'm having strange feelings or whatever. I want you to have documentation so that you can say, this is when this began. This is how long it lasts. This is what triggered it. Yes, they can do various tests. And sometimes the test, because it's hormonal, the test may come back normal. But if you are monitoring you and you have the data, then your doctor, your clinician will listen to you differently because it is their job once they see, well, here's a pattern, here's whatever, then that's when diagnosing can occur. So many of you have said, well, I'm in perimenopause. I know I'm in perimenopause because, yes, I'm having all these different symptoms. I've tried many things and it didn't work. Again, not everything works for everyone. And I will ask you, did you give it enough time? Most of us are impatient. Something is wrong. We want the magic pill and we want it to subside immediately. It's not. Give it the appropriate time to get into your system, if you've changed your diet, all of those things, give it time. Not a day, not 3 days, not a week. Give yourself 90 days. So that, again, you can then track and chart what's going on. Many of you have tracked and charted when you ovulated. You didn't just do it for one day. You had to see what the pattern was. This is no different. So today, I want you to know that perimenopause is nothing to be fearful of. Yes, there's a lot of information. But I want you to go from confused to confident. You are a fearfully and wonderfully made being. God created our bodies, and we are the most intricate machines, the most intricate organisms. And when one thing changes, everything else changes. You are magnificent. You are worthy. You are not less than because you're going through perimenopause. You are still hot. I want to thank you for listening to this short time that I've had with you. And if you'd like to reach me, you can reach me at www.imstillhot.com. That's www.imstillhot.com. When you come to my website, there are several gifts for you. One of them being 8 unusual symptoms that people have. There's also, that is the way that you can schedule time with me. There's also the way where you can find my book, Perimenopause, What Your Mother and Your Girlfriends Did Not Tell You. For those of you who are like, I know a lot, but you enjoy coloring, you enjoy learning a different way, there are things there for you as well. So again, I want to thank you. It has been a pleasure to be here at the $1 Million Life Global Summit, and I hope you left here today knowing that you are still hot. Have a great day.